I'm simply the latest in a line that can be traced back generations.
A new role, the steadfast devotion to duty.
For decades, King Charles kept his silence. He endured the scrutiny, the relentless questions, and the weight of a past that refused to stay buried. The world spoke for him, crafting narratives about his choices, his regrets, and the ghost of a love story that never truly faded. He remained steadfast, unwavering in his royal duty, as if silence itself could protect him. But now, at 76, something has changed. The weight of history has caught up with him, and for the first time he is revealing a truth so unexpected that even those closest to him are left speechless. For years, Charles lived in the shadow of Princess Diana. Her presence, even in death, shaped his every move, his every decision. To the world, she was the people's princess, the beloved figure who brought warmth and humanity to the monarchy. And Charles? He was the man who let her go, the distant, composed royal who seemed to lack the very qualities that made Diana so adored. That perception followed him, haunting his reign and defining his legacy. No matter what he did, no matter how he ruled, Diana's name was always there, lingering like an unspoken accusation. But now, Charles is speaking, and what he has to say is not what anyone expected. According to royal insiders, the king has privately acknowledged a truth he never dared to say aloud. A truth that, once revealed, will force the world to reconsider everything they thought they knew. It is not a simple admission. It is a reckoning. For the first time, Charles is confronting the choices that shaped his life, and, in doing so, reshaping the way history will remember him. Some believe that age has softened him. With time, he has grown introspective, willing to face the emotions he once locked away. Others suspect something more strategic, an attempt to rewrite history before it is set in stone. Whatever the reason, the impact of his words cannot be ignored. He is not merely reminiscing, he is altering the present. His confession is not just personal, it is political. It shifts the narrative, forcing the monarchy to confront an uncomfortable truth. The past cannot be erased, but it can be redefined. And that is exactly what Charles is doing. By finally speaking out, he is changing the way the world sees him, the way the monarchy is perceived, and perhaps the way Diana's story is remembered. But what exactly did he say? That revelation could be so shocking that even those within the royal circle are left stunned. The answer to that question is more complex than anyone anticipated, because this is not just about Charles and Diana. It is about legacy, power, and the realization that some ghosts never fade. What exactly did he say that could change everything we thought we knew? He tried to move forward. He took the throne, embraced his role, and carried the weight of the monarchy on his shoulders. But history refuses to let go. No matter how many speeches he gives, no matter how many years pass, one truth remains unshaken. Charles will always be tied to the past. His reign is not just about the future of the monarchy. It is about the shadows that follow him, the memories the world refuses to forget, and the choices he can no longer outrun. For decades, he stood behind palace walls, carefully navigating his responsibilities while the whispers outside never faded. The headlines never stopped. The media painted him as the cold and distant prince, the man who failed Diana, the one who prioritized duty over love. And the public? They never forgave him. The world watched as he ascended the throne, but instead of seeing a king, they saw a man still trapped in the echoes of a marriage that ended decades ago. His family serves as a constant reminder of what once was. His sons, William and Harry, carry their mother's legacy, her spirit and her influence. The people's princess lives on through them, in their every move, their every word, their every rejection of the old ways that defined their father's rule. Even his wife, Camilla, the woman who once symbolized scandal and secrecy, remains a figure of controversy. No matter how many years they have been together, some will always see her as the woman who replaced Diana, not the woman who stood beside Charles in his reign. But behind the palace walls, something has shifted. Insiders reveal that Charles has been privately reflecting on his past, revisiting decisions that shaped his life in ways he never imagined. For years, he justified his choices. He told himself that he had done what was expected, that he had followed tradition, and that he had upheld the monarchy's values. But as time marches forward, the weight of those decisions grows heavier. The explanations that once seemed enough now feel hollow. He has ruled as king, but in the court of public opinion, the verdict remains unchanged. The burden of his past is not just an abstract idea, it is a living, breathing force that shapes his every move. Every decision he makes is scrutinized through the lens of history. Every attempt to lead is compared to the legacy of those who came before him, and in moments of solitude, Charles is forced to confront the one thing he has spent his life avoiding: regret. A legacy cannot be rewritten. That is the painful truth he is coming to understand. But can it be repaired? That is the question he now faces. As his reign continues, Charles is beginning to admit something that changes everything. Behind the grand wedding, the lavish ceremonies, and the dazzling smiles, something was wrong. The world watched as Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer exchanged vows in what was meant to be the fairy tale of the century. But beneath the surface, beneath the carefully crafted image of royal perfection, cracks were already beginning to form. What the world saw was a union of destiny, but what unfolded behind closed doors was something far different. A marriage bound not by love, but by duty, expectation, and the weight of an institution unwilling to bend. For years, the public remained enchanted by the illusion. They saw Diana's radiant presence, her effortless charm, and her ability to captivate not just Britain, but the entire world. They saw Charles, the future king, fulfilling his role with precision and grace. But they didn't see the loneliness. They didn't hear the silences that stretched between them, the unspoken words, the growing distance. Royal obligations dictated their every move, their every interaction. Diana was expected to conform, to adapt, to accept the traditions that had dictated royal marriages for centuries. Charles was expected to uphold the crown, to prioritize duty above all else. Love was never part of the equation, at least not in the way Diana had imagined. Looking back now, Charles has begun to admit what he once refused to acknowledge. His rigid adherence to royal expectations and his unwavering commitment to protocol played a role in the unraveling of his marriage. He believed, as he had been taught, that duty must come first, that personal happiness was secondary, that love, if it could exist within the confines of monarchy, had to be controlled, subdued, and made to fit within the walls of Buckingham Palace. But Diana was never meant to be confined. She was never meant to be just a royal wife. She was meant to be something greater, something that even now eclipses his legacy. The realization is a bitter one. No matter how many years pass, no matter how much he tries to define himself as king, Diana's influence remains stronger than his own. She is remembered not just for who she was, but for what she represented. A force of compassion, a symbol of change, a princess who refused to be silenced. And Charles? He is left confronting the painful truth that history has already chosen sides. His name will always be linked to hers, but never in the way he once imagined. But there is something even more surprising. Charles isn't just reflecting on Diana, he is taking action. He is looking toward the future, toward the next generation of royals, and issuing a warning that could change everything. His son, Prince William, stands at a crossroads, and Charles, for the first time, is speaking out about the one lesson he learned too late. Don't make my mistakes. A message not spoken for the world to hear, but one Charles is delivering to his eldest son behind closed doors. A warning, a plea, a rare moment of reflection from a man who has spent his entire life bound by royal duty. For decades, Charles lived by the rules of the monarchy, sacrificing personal happiness for responsibility, believing that love must always come second to the crown. And now, as he watches his son walk the same treacherous path, he feels compelled to intervene. The question is, will William listen, or is history doomed to repeat itself? Insiders reveal that Charles has been advising William in a way that no one ever advised him, cautioning him not about politics or protocol, but about the dangers of putting the institution before his family. The struggles within William and Kate's marriage have not gone unnoticed. Royal obligations weigh heavily on them, just as they once did on Charles and Diana. The pressures of public life, the relentless scrutiny, and the expectation to be perfect is a burden that can suffocate even the strongest of relationships. And Charles, having lived through the destruction of his marriage, understands what is at stake. His warning is simple yet profound. No royal duty is more important than family. A shocking statement from a man who once believed the opposite. For years, Charles operated under the belief that tradition must be upheld at all costs and that love was secondary to responsibility. It was that very mindset that contributed to the collapse of his first marriage, to the pain that followed, to the lingering stain on his reputation. And now, at 76, he is forced to confront a bitter truth. His greatest regret was allowing the monarchy to dictate the course of his personal life. He refuses to let the same fate befall his son. This shift in Charles's priorities is unexpected. He was once the embodiment of royal duty, a man who sacrificed everything in service of the crown, but now he sees things differently. He understands that power and status mean nothing if they come at the cost of genuine human connection. He has lived through the consequences of choosing duty over love, and he knows better than anyone that once a marriage is broken under the weight of royal expectation, it can never be truly repaired. The past cannot be rewritten, but perhaps the future can be altered. Perhaps William can be spared the same fate. But is this advice coming too late? William has already spent years walking the tightrope between family and obligation, and the pressures are only growing. The cracks are already beginning to show, and Charles knows better than anyone that once those cracks widen, they become impossible to mend. He can warn his son, and he can share his regrets, but in the end, the decision is not his to make. William will have to choose for himself. While Charles is trying to guide one son, his relationship with the other remains fractured. The past still lingers unresolved, and the wounds between father and son run deep, because while William has chosen duty, Harry has walked away from it entirely, and that is a decision Charles may never truly understand. Unlike William, Harry refused to follow the royal script. He didn't bend to expectations. He didn't conform. Instead, he did the one thing the monarchy fears the most. He walked away. His decision to step back from royal life wasn't just a personal choice, it was an act of defiance, a rejection of the very institution that shaped him. But was this rebellion truly his own? Or was it the echo of a struggle that began long before he was born? A struggle that belonged to his mother, a woman who refused to be silenced. Diana was known for her deep emotional connection with her sons. She was warm, expressive, and fiercely protective of them. She gave them something the monarchy could not: affection without condition, love without restraint. And while William learned to balance that love with the rigid expectations of royal duty, Harry seemed to inherit something else entirely: a need for freedom. Resistance to control, a determination to live life on his terms, no matter the cost. His departure from royal life was not just a scandal, it was history repeating itself. Decades earlier, Diana had fought against the constraints of the crown, struggling to carve out an identity beyond the title of princess. She wanted to be seen, to be heard, to be more than a silent figurehead, and when the royal machine refused to accommodate her, she stepped outside of it, becoming larger than the institution itself. Now, her son was doing the same, walking away, leaving behind the traditions that had suffocated his mother, hoping to escape the same fate. But could he ever truly be free? Or was the weight of his past too great to outrun? For Charles, Harry's departure was more than just another royal controversy. It was personal. The son he once cradled in his arms, the boy who had clung to him after Diana's tragic death, was now an ocean away, physically and emotionally. And for the first time, Charles reportedly regrets something he has never spoken about publicly: the distance between them. He was never the affectionate father Diana had been. He was never the one to offer comfort, to shield his sons from the emotional toll of their upbringing. He had done what was expected of him, playing the role of a king before playing the role of a father. And now he wonders if that was his greatest mistake. Can he mend this relationship? Can the wounds of the past ever truly heal? Or is the damage permanent? These are the questions that haunt him now in the late years of his life. He has watched his son walk away, watched history repeat itself, and now he must face the painful truth: Harry may never come back. But while his sons continue their separate battles, there is another figure in Charles's life who has played a major role in shaping his journey. A woman who, even now, divides public opinion: Camilla, the Queen Consort, the woman who has been at the center of this story from the very beginning. The woman once blamed for Diana's heartbreak now stands by Charles's side, crowned as Queen Consort, a title once unthinkable, a role once impossible. Yet here she is, standing next to the man she was once forced to love in secret. But as Charles attempts to reshape his legacy, one question lingers: has Camilla helped him regain control of his image, or has she only deepened the divide between the monarchy and the people? Camilla's presence in Charles's life has never been without controversy. To some, she is his rock, the woman who stood by him through years of scandal and scrutiny, the one person who understands the burden of royal duty as he does. Insiders claim that behind palace doors, it is Camilla who has encouraged Charles to be more open about his past, to acknowledge his mistakes, to soften the rigid exterior that has long defined him. And perhaps in her way, she has succeeded. Charles is speaking more than he ever has, revealing truths he once kept buried. But is this newfound openness genuine? Or is it a carefully orchestrated attempt to win back public favor? For many, Camilla's presence in Charles's life has always been the wound that never healed. A reminder of betrayal, a figure who, fairly or unfairly, is still viewed as the other woman, the one who stood in Diana's shadow. Time has softened some perceptions, but the divide remains. Some say Camilla has been Charles's greatest support, the person who gave him the strength to endure decades of scrutiny. Others argue that her very existence in the royal narrative is an insult to Diana's memory, and no matter how much Charles may try to move forward, some will never accept Camilla as part of his legacy. Public opinion is still fractured, an ongoing battle between acceptance and resentment. Even now, years into her marriage to Charles, her role in history remains uncertain, the queen consort in the title, but to many, still an outsider in spirit. Every time Charles speaks about Diana, every time he acknowledges his past, Camilla's presence is felt not as a unifying force, but as a question mark. Has she truly helped him redefine his legacy? Or has she only served as a reminder of the mistakes that came before? No matter what Charles says or does, no matter how many speeches he gives, one truth remains unchanged. Diana's influence will never fade. She was the woman the world adored, the princess who became a legend. And for Charles, that is a reality he will never escape. Even as king, even with Camilla by his side, he will forever be measured against the memory of the woman who came before. And that is a battle he may never win. Even in death, Diana remains the most powerful figure in royal history. Her presence lingers, not just in memory, but in the very fabric of the monarchy itself. The woman who was once deemed an outsider, who was dismissed as too emotional, too unpredictable, and too unwilling to conform, became the most beloved royal of modern times. She was not bound by tradition. She was not defined by the rigid expectations of the crown. Instead, she became something far greater, a symbol of compassion, of humanity, of a monarchy that could connect with the people in a way it never had before, and even now, decades later, that connection remains unbroken. Charles, in contrast, has spent his entire life trying to win the affection that came so effortlessly to Diana. Despite his dedication, despite his years of service, he has never been able to capture the public's love in the same way. He has ruled with duty, with discipline, with the weight of history pressing down on him. But love is not earned through obligation. It cannot be commanded. And that is the lesson he has had to learn the hard way. No speech, no policy, and no carefully crafted public relations campaign can erase the way people remember Diana. She was warm, she was authentic, she was the princess who made the crown feel human. Insiders reveal that Charles understands this all too well. He knows he will always be compared to her, that his reign will forever exist in the shadow of her legacy. Every time he steps into the public eye, every time he addresses the nation, the unspoken presence of Diana is there. And for all his efforts to move forward, he remains tethered to the past. Because the truth is, no matter how much time passes, Diana's influence is stronger than his own. She represents something the monarchy has struggled to embody: emotion, vulnerability, and connection, and those are qualities that people will never forget. Can Charles ever escape Diana's shadow? Or is he destined to remain defined by the woman who once stood beside him, the woman whose light never faded? That is the question that haunts his reign, because while he may wear the crown, while he may hold the title of king, Diana will always be the queen of the people's hearts. And that is a throne no one, not even a monarch, can take away. Charles's confessions may be an attempt to redefine his legacy, but can public opinion truly change? That remains the greatest uncertainty of his reign. He has spent a lifetime trying to prove himself, to carve out an identity separate from Diana's story, but history is relentless, and some legacies are simply too powerful to be rewritten. Is King Charles truly reflecting on his past, or is this all a carefully crafted strategy? The timing of his admissions is impossible to ignore. Decades of silence, decades of maintaining composure, and now suddenly he speaks. He acknowledges the past, the pain, and the choices that shaped him. But is this a moment of personal reckoning? Or is it an attempt to shift public perception before it's too late? Some believe his confessions are genuine. After a lifetime of playing the role of a dutiful prince, Charles is finally allowing himself to be human. That he is no longer hiding behind royal protocol, but instead confronting the legacy he will leave behind. His reign is unlike any that came before it. He does not rule in the same way Queen Elizabeth II did, with quiet strength and unwavering silence. Instead, he is navigating a new era, one where transparency is no longer a choice, but a necessity. The world demands it. The monarchy, once untouchable, is now under constant scrutiny. And for Charles, the only way forward is to address the past head-on. But not everyone is convinced. Some see his admissions as calculated, a carefully orchestrated effort to reshape his image. The truth is that Charles has always struggled with public approval. He has fought for acceptance in a way no other heir to the throne has. And now, with his legacy at stake, some believe his willingness to speak out is not about reflection, but about redemption, a final attempt to rewrite the way history will remember him. Yet the question remains, will it be enough? Can a lifetime of duty, of scandal, of controversy be redefined by words alone? The monarchy Charles inherited is not the same one his mother ruled over. The rules have changed. The expectations have shifted. In the age of relentless media coverage and instant access to information, the royal family can no longer remain distant figures behind palace gates. They must be seen, they must be heard. And for Charles, that means addressing the ghosts of the past before they define his future. One thing is certain, history is still being written, and Charles's place in it remains uncertain. He has spent his life preparing for the throne, but now that he sits upon it, the true battle begins. Will he be remembered as the king who finally faced his past, or will he always be the man standing in Diana's shadow, trying to rewrite a story that the world has already decided? What do you think? Has King Charles truly changed, or is he simply trying to rewrite history? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.